In this video, we're going to solve system of equations by substitution method. So first example, here you have two equations. So you have a system of equation, and to solve it together, first look at the first equation. It is the standard equation, and from the first equation, what information you can get? You can see that y equals negative 3x. It means y can be replaced or represented by negative 3x. And in the second equation, you'll see a y. So instead of putting y here, you can put negative 3x in the place of y because they equal each other. So you can exchange between them. Okay? So because we're changing something in the second equation, so we're going to rewrite the second equation, which is y, but you don't put y there. You put negative 3x there. And keep copy the next one, which is minus 6x equals negative 9. So here for the second equation, we'll only change y into negative 3x because y and negative 3x, they equal each other. So you can exchange between them. Right? So now we have this new equation, and in the new equation we only have one variable, which is x. So we can keep solving for x. How are we going to solve it? So on the same side of the equation, you see 2x. So combine like terms by adding up the number in the front. So negative 3 plus negative 6 give you negative 9x. After combining them, they're done, right? And on the other side, bring whatever you haven't touched down, and keep solving the equation for x by dividing negative 9. So you have x equals positive 1. So you have x equals 1. However, in your system of equations, you have two variables, x and y. So now you're going to calculate y equals what? How are you going to do that? So for your standard equation, which is the first equation, it is y equals negative 3 times x. And you already know the value of x, which is 1. So plug 1 to the place of x. So y equals negative 3 times x equals negative 3 times 1. Because x equals 1. And calculate it. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. So x equals 1, y equals negative 3 is your solution for the system of equation. Next example. So here from the standard equation, we can get the information. X can be represented by this negative 3y plus 1. So you can exchange between x and negative 3 plus 3y plus 1. Okay? And in the second equation, you'll see a x. So instead of putting x there, you substitute it with negative 3y plus 1 circle. Okay? And rewrite the second equation. From the beginning is 3. Next is x, but instead of putting x there, you put its representation there, which is negative 3y plus 1. And keep copy the second equation, plus 3y equals 15. Okay. So here in this new equation, you only have one variable, which is y, so you can keep solving it. First, get rid of the parentheses by distribution 3 to everybody in the parentheses. Distribution means multiplication, right? So we have 3 times negative 3y, number times number. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9, and they'll only have one y, so copy it down. Next, multiplication. 3 times positive 1 is positive 3. So you got rid of the parentheses and copy down whatever you haven't touched, which is plus 3y equals 15. And keep solving this equation. You'll see like terms on the same side, so you can combine them. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6y. After combining them, they're gone, right? And you have plus 3 you haven't touched. equal sign on the other side you haven't touched. And now keep solving the equation for y by getting rid of the positive 3 first. By subtracting 3. So we have negative 6y equals 12. And then get rid of the negative 6 by division. So we have y equals 2. Okay? When you have y equals 2, go back to your first standard equation to solve for x. It tells you x equals negative 3 times y plus 1. And you already know y is 2. So plug 2 to the place of y and calculate it. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, plus 1 is negative 5. So x equals negative 5, y equals 2 is your solution. Okay. Next one. So the first standard equation tells you y can be represented by this big guy. So you can exchange between them. And in the second equation, you see a y. So you see in the first equation, it tells you y equals something. So in the second equation, you look for y and replace it or substitute it by the big guy in the first equation and rewrite the second equation. From the beginning, you have negative x plus 2. And when you see the y, you plug in the representation of it, which is 5x minus 2. And keep copy the second equation. Okay. So now you can solve the second equation. First, get rid of the parentheses by multiplying positive 2 to everybody inside. So I have negative x you haven't touched. And 2 times 5x, number part, 2 times 5 is positive 10. X part is only x. Second arrow, 2 times negative 2 gives negative 4. So I got rid of the parentheses, right? And on the other side, you have equal sign and negative 4. And keep solve this equation. On the same side, you see 2x, combine them by adding the number in the front. What is the number in front of the first x? It is negative imaginary 1. So negative 1 plus 10 is positive 9x. After combining them, they're gone, right? And bring down whatever you haven't touched. And keep solving the equation for x by getting rid of the negative 4 first, by plus 4. So you have 9x equals negative 4 plus 4 gives you 0. And then divide by 9. So you have x equals 0 divided by 9 is 0. Okay? And then you go back to look for the value of y by plugging 0 to the place of x, right? So y equals 5 times 0 minus 2, which gives you negative 2. And that's your solutions. Next example. So in this example, you see what? You see at the beginning, you don't have a standard equation to tell you x equals something or y equals something, right? So what are you going to do? So first, you're going to pick up one equation here and write it into the standard way. Okay? So which equation you look for? You look for the equation that you have a single x or a single y in it. So you can just remove the thing on the same side to the other side, right? So here's the first equation. Have a single x. So if we get rid of this part and move it to the other side, we have x equals something. We can represent x by something, right? So here for the first equation, let's write it in the standard way. So x plus 3y equals 1. I want x equals something. So get rid of the positive 3y and minus 3y. Do the same on the other side. So you have x equals, on the other side you have 1 minus 3y. Okay, so this is your true first equation. We're not changing it, but we rearrange it to have x to be represented by something. Okay, so the first equation tells you you can exchange between x and 1 minus 3y. Okay, and in the second equation, you see a x. Why do we look for x? Because the first equation tells you x can be changed. So in the second equation, you look for x and change it. Okay? And rewrite your second equation. From the beginning, you have 3. Next is x, but instead of putting x there, you put this representation there, which is 1 minus 3y. And keep copy. Plus 3y equals 15. And solve this equation. So first, get rid of the parentheses by distribution. So we have 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times negative 3 is negative 9y. Okay? And copy down plus 3y equals 15. And keep solve it. First, combine like terms. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6y. After combining them, they're gone. And bring down the 3 in the front, equal sign, 15 on the other side. And keep solving the equation for y by getting rid of the single number first by subtracting 3. So we have equals 12. And then get rid of the negative 6 by division. So we have y equals negative 2. When we have y equals negative 2, plug it back into the first equation. It tells you x equals 1 minus 3y, and you know y is negative 2, so plug in negative 2. So it equals 1 minus 3 times negative 2, which gives us positive 7. So x equals 7. Okay? So if you don't, at the beginning, you don't have something can be represented by the other thing, you create it by rearrange the places of your equation. Okay. So let's work on this one. So at the beginning, the second equation tells you the information. Y can be represented by this big guy. So in the first equation, you look for y. And you rewrite the first equation this time. Okay. Second equation gives you the information. First equation, rewrite it. So it's x minus 3. When you see y, plug in is substitution. And copy the rest. And get rid of the parentheses by multiplying negative 3. Don't forget the sign. Okay? So I have x, negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. X, negative 3 times 21 is negative 63. Copy the other side. And combine like terms. Here is 1x. So 1 minus 18 give you negative 17x. Copy the rest. And keep solving the equation by getting rid of the negative 63 first. Copy the rest. Finally, divide by negative 17. So I have x equals negative 3. Okay. And when you have x equals something, plug it back into the second equation to look for y. So y equals 6 times x. Plug in negative 3 to x. plus 21, which give us positive 3. And that's it. Okay. Last one. So the second equation gives you this information. Y can be exchanged or substituted by the big guy here. And in the first equation, you look for y. And rewrite the first equation. Negative 3x minus 8. When you see y, substitute it by the representation of it. And copy the rest of the first equation. And solve this new equation by first getting rid of the parentheses by distribution. You're going to multiply negative 8 to everybody inside. So copy down negative 3x. Negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. X. Negative 8 times positive 19 is negative 152. And copy the other side down. And combine like terms. Negative 3 add negative 40 is negative 43 x. Copy the rest down. And keep solving the equation. First, get rid of the single number. You have 172. And then get rid of the negative 43 by division. So we have x equals negative 4. Okay. When you get the value for x, go back to your standard equation to look for y. Okay. So y equals 5 times x, and we know x is negative 4. So plug in the value of x and do the calculation. 5 times negative 4 plus 19 equals negative 1. And that's it. Okay. So x equals negative 4, y equals negative 1. If you're interested, let's do this SAT problem. What is the value of f of negative 2 if function f equals all of this? So here you just need to plug negative 2 to the place of x in this function. Okay? Let's plug in negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. When you plug in a negative number, you have to give it parentheses. Okay? And put everything here in the calculator, you're going to have your result. So this is negative 8 plus 16 plus 4 minus 3 partial. Add all of them up, you have positive 9. So C is correct. Okay. Next one, still evaluate function f when x equals negative 3. So just plug negative 3 to the place of x. If you plug in a negative number, you have to give it a parenthesis. Otherwise, for the square, you get it wrong. Okay. And calculate it. So this gives you negative 27 minus 9 plus 3, which gives us negative 33, which is B. So these first two questions are evaluate a function. Last one. For all x, x squared minus 7 parenthesis square equals what? So just ignore this condition. And just ask you to simplify this parenthesis. So to get rid of the parenthesis, First, we see the square, and we know square means double it. So double your parentheses. And then keep getting rid of the parentheses. Here, the two parentheses are multiplying each other, so we're going to do the distribution. So we're going to multiply the first guy in the first house to everybody in the second house, and multiply the second guy in the first house to everybody in the second house. Okay? So first multiplication, x times x is x squared. Second multiplication, x times -7, don't forget the sign, is -7x. Next is -7 times x is -7x. Finally is -7 times -7, which is +49. And then combine like terms and copy down whatever you cannot do, nothing. Combine these two by adding up the number in the front. So -7 add -7 is -14x. After combining them, they're gone, and burn down the single number. So the answer is D. Okay, so these questions are easy ones that we already know how to do them, but the question asks you in a way that we may not familiar with. So just review this.